Hello everyone! John Rambo is a veteran of the U.S. Army's elite Special Forces unit, awarded with the Medal of Honor for his participation in the Vietnam War. During his service, he was taken prisoner and brutally tortured. A few years after his discharge, Rambo travels across America. Trying to escape his past, he finds himself face to face with terrible injustices in his homeland, forcing him to relive the horrors of war.
Can't you see this guy's crazy?
Can't you see I don't give a shit?
1980, United States. A lonely traveler with a smile on his face reaches a small settlement by a lake. He approaches one of the houses on the shore and asks two women if they know his army buddy. Turns out they are his mother and sister, and John shows them a note on which his friend has written his address, as well as a photo of them together from Vietnam.
Delmar's gone.
What time will he be back?
He died.
What?
The soldier's mother reveals that her son passed away from cancer the previous year. She believes that he got sick due to exposure to Agent Orange, a harmful chemical used during the war to target guerrilla fighters and devastate forests. Taken aback by this news, John hands her the photograph of his military squad and leaves, utterly devastated. He walks along the highway and by evening reaches a small town called Hope in Washington. The local sheriff, Will Teasel, who knows everyone in town, notices the suspicious stranger on the road. John's long hair immediately rubs Will the wrong way, and the sight of the American flag on his jacket only adds to his irritation. Will quickly jumps to conclusions about John. Rambo, being his usual quiet self, just wants to proceed on his journey and doesn't bother to appease the sheriff. Will offers to give John a lift. After hesitating for a while, John reluctantly agrees and gets in the car. John says he's going to Portland, but Will suspects it's a lie because the city is the other way around. John says he wants to get something to eat, to which the sheriff replies that he will find a diner 30 miles outside of town.
So why are you pushing me? I haven't done anything to you.
First of all, you don't ask the questions around here. I do. You understand?
The arrogant sheriff is determined to get Rambo as far away from the town as possible. He works too hard to protect the peace of its residents and has no intention of tolerating even one drifter who might do something bad and run away. Will thinks that's what he's paid to do. The town might be small and boring, but at least he makes sure there are no accidents. Upon reaching the outskirts, the sheriff drops John off and cautions him against coming back. Rambo remains unfazed by the provocation, keeping his thoughts to himself. There might be a storm raging in his heart, but his military past helps him show remarkable restraint even in the most unpleasant situation. As it starts raining, John decides to return to Hope after all. He doesn't wait for the unfair Sheriff Teasel to drive away in his car. The sheriff notices the drifter defying him and once again blocks his path. This time, Rambo chooses to completely ignore him. When the sheriff attempts to grab him, Rambo swiftly breaks his grip. This proves to be the last straw, prompting the sheriff to arrest John at gunpoint. Teasel searches him and finds a combat knife tucked behind Rambo's belt. Although John insists it's for hunting purposes, Teasel remains skeptical and takes him to the police station. There, the sheriff charges John with vagrancy, resisting arrest, and concealing a weapon. The other officers mock Rambo, and the sheriff notices an unpleasant odor emanating from him, suggesting Rambo take a shower. John realizes that he is in a hostile environment and starts to perceive everyone around him as enemies. He examines the room, noticing a gun cabinet and windows with bars. Memories of his captivity in Vietnam, where he faced many humiliating experiences, come rushing back. Regrettably, he finds himself in a similar situation in his homeland, where he's treated as a second-class citizen. It triggers a defense reaction in him, and Rambo gets even more tight-lipped, refusing to give his name, and resists inspection. Deputy Galt reads his name, ripping his army dog tags off his neck. The man's military past doesn't evoke any sympathy from the police officers. When the cops unsuccessfully tried to take Rambo's fingerprints, Teasel shows up. The sheriff threatens him with 3 months of jail time with community service and a hefty fine. The trial is scheduled for 10 o'clock in the morning, and Teasel orders to clean up the man. Later, Rambo takes off his clothes, revealing numerous deep scars on his body which catch the attention of the police. A young guy named Mitch wants to learn the arrested man's backstory and suggests telling the sheriff about the scars. However, Galt, who has already run out of patience, abruptly turns John around and ruthlessly hits him on the back with a rubber baton. To further humiliate Rambo, they proceed to wash him like an animal, subjecting him to a forceful blast from a hose that nearly knocks him off his feet, all for Galt's sadistic amusement. Afterward, when they try to shave him with a straight razor, Rambo again has flashbacks to being tortured in Vietnam. He breathes heavily and snaps, attacking Galt and his 2 colleagues. The veteran's fighting skills allow him to quickly take down all the cops and escape the station with his combat knife. Outside, he knocks a man off his bike and drives away. Galt runs out onto the porch with his rifle, but Teasel doesn't let him shoot because the streets are full of people. Rambo hits the gas and rushes forward, trying to escape his pursuers. But the sheriff and his car keeps up, and soon they drive off the road into rugged terrain, where John gets the advantage. Teasel contacts the police station to report the unfolding situation just before he loses control of his vehicle, causing it to tumble down the hill. Meanwhile, Rambo struggles to get over a steep incline, leaving his bike behind as he makes a hasty retreat on foot into the surrounding mountains. Eventually, Teasel gives up the chase.
I know you can hear me! You're finished!
Shivering from cold, Rambo accidentally stumbles upon an abandoned construction camp deep in the woods. There, he finds a rope and a sturdy cloth, which he fashions into a makeshift cloak to keep warm. Meanwhile, Teasel instructs his team to use the dogs and a helicopter to aid in the search. The K-9 unit quickly arrives, and the dogs pick up the fugitive's scent. Rambo continues north, using a compass hidden in the hilt of his knife. He hears his pursuers and climbs to the very top of the mountain, from which there is no escape. Using his climbing skills, Rambo descends a steep cliff that overlooks a mountain river. Suddenly, a helicopter appears in the sky, carrying Galt armed with a rifle. Ignoring the sheriff's instructions to bring Rambo in alive, the man with the black eye disobeys and shoots to kill. Startled by a sudden jolt, the cop threatens to shoot the pilot if he doesn't hold the chopper steady or tries to stop him. Rambo narrowly escapes death thus far, but he realizes it won't be long before he's hit. Without hesitation, he jumps off the cliff, grabbing onto the branches of a pine tree below. Remarkably, he lands on the ground alive, although his right arm suffers a severe injury. Galt continues the chase, but the wide tree trunk protects the fugitive from bullets. Acting swiftly, Rambo grabs a rock and hurls it at the helicopter's windshield. The pilot reacts and jerks the control lever, resulting in Galt falling out of the aircraft. John goes to look for Galt, and after finding him dead on the rocks, swiftly strips him of his clothes, takes his rifle, and flees along the riverbank. Teasel, who never received a response from Galt on the radio, stumbles upon his deputy's lifeless body. With the right tools concealed in his knife's handle, John patches up the wound on his shoulder, and then cautiously emerges, hands raised in surrender to the approaching cops.
There's one man dead! It's not my fault! I don't want any more hurt! Freeze!
Standing on a rock, Teasel orders him not to move and is unwilling to listen to anything John has to say. Rambo is alarmed by the rifles pointed at him and backs away. The sheriff opens fire, and the rest follow suit. The wounded Rambo hides behind a rock and retreats further into the woods. Teasel tries to call a helicopter to retrieve Galt's body, but because of the thunderstorm, flights are impossible. He learns that Rambo is a seasoned veteran and a hero of the Vietnam War. The cops begin to quarrel and criticize the sheriff's decision, to which Teasel responds by grabbing Mitch's hair and making him look at Galt's dead body, promising to avenge his old friend. The dogs stay on Rambo's trail, and as an approaching thunderstorm and the chilly evening weather add tension, the officers find themselves in another argument. Rambo, who now has a rifle, ambushes and shoots a dog handler in the leg. He tricks the pursuers with a scarecrow and kills the dogs that run after him. Teasel hasn't lost any determination and leads his subordinates further into the forest. But the dense forest is an environment that Rambo knows better than anyone else, and he swiftly incapacitates his pursuers by stabbing them in the legs. Trying to help their colleagues, the cops fall into Rambo's traps and accidentally shoot each other. Soon, the sheriff is the only one left standing, and Rambo takes him by surprise. He puts a knife to Teasel's throat, noting that he could have easily finished off all of them if he wanted.
Don't push it. Don't push it, I'll give you a war you won't believe.
He asks to be left alone and leaves the sheriff alive. Taking one of the police radios, Rambo disappears into the darkness. The wounded cops are taken out of the woods, while journalists and state police arrive at the scene. But Teasel intends to finish the job on his own, using the reinforcements that have arrived. After the sheriff is told that Rambo was treated roughly at the station, Colonel Sam Troutman shows up at the tent.
Never possessed God in heaven to make a man like Rambo.
God didn't make Rambo. I made him.
The colonel explains that he was the one who trained and commanded Rambo in Vietnam. John was the best of his soldiers, able to survive in inhumane conditions without food, water, or reinforcements. He's surprised the sheriff's men are alive, so Teasel should stop underestimating Rambo if he really wants to catch him. The colonel suggests leaving Rambo alone to calm him down and catching the fugitive later with the help of the army force. But for the sheriff, it's a matter of honor now, and he's not going to lose face. Now, he has 200 experienced policemen under his command, and they are sure to get Rambo. Troutman leaves, advising him to prepare enough body bags. Teasel catches up with the colonel and asks him to follow him. As night falls, Rambo manages to catch a wild boar for dinner and finds refuge in a deserted cabin. Through the stolen radio, he receives a call from the police, offering him a chance to surrender. However, John chooses not to respond. The sheriff then requests Troutman's assistance in persuading Rambo to resolve the situation peacefully, while they also attempt to trace the source of the radio signal. Much to Rambo's surprise, Troutman uses the Army call sign Raven. The colonel lists the names of his fellow soldiers to confirm his identity, and John responds. Rambo reports that everyone but him is already dead. Troutman is sorry to hear that and tries to convince Rambo to turn himself in, but John says that's impossible. Everything happened because of the sheriff who drew the first blood. Rambo no longer responds to the colonel, but Teasel manages to pinpoint the location of his hideout. In the morning, the cops head for the mountains, but Rambo deftly eludes them. John accidentally encounters a young hunter and almost kills him, but realizes the boy is harmless and lets him go. The other hunters quickly spot the fugitive and shoot in the air, drawing the attention of the police. Rambo finds an abandoned mine and the entrance is surrounded by cops who open fire on Rambo. They don't expect the fugitive to respond with a burst of machine gun fire.
I want you and Bruce, head around these trees, go to the front of that mine.
Screw that, Clinton. I ain't going up there.
No way.
The lieutenant gives Rambo 3 seconds before they shoot into the mine with a rocket launcher. Rambo doesn't comply, and the soldiers carry out their threat. A powerful explosion causes the mine entrance to collapse, but Rambo manages to slip deeper inside, avoiding death. Amidst the collapsed mine entrance, the gleeful soldiers take pictures, celebrating their victory. However, Teasel, who has just arrived, is livid that his order not to shoot has been ignored once again. Now they'll have to find a dead body to close the case. Troutman is also here, and his comments once again hurt the sheriff's fragile ego. Not waiting for the bulldozer, a weary Teasel heads back to the station. Meanwhile, Rambo finds barrels of old fuel in the pitch darkness and lights a makeshift torch. As he makes his way further into the mine, he stumbles and finds himself waist deep in water. Perhaps the stream leads to an exit, but suddenly Rambo is attacked by a pack of rats. After fending them off, Rambo watches the smoke from the torch. Realizing where the air is flowing, it leads him to the surface. At this time, Teasel finds Troutman at a local bar.
Look, if I was out of line before, I just want to apologize.
After apologizing, the sheriff asks what the colonel would have done in his place. Teasel confesses he wanted to kill Rambo with his own hands, but held back. The colonel replies that he doesn't know what he would have done since he and John haven't seen each other in a long time. Both men assume that Rambo didn't survive, but leave room for doubt. Meanwhile, Rambo spots a convoy of military trucks on the road. He jumps onto the roof of one of them and climbs into the cab, threatening the driver with a knife. He learned from the guy that the truck is full of M60 heavy machine guns and ammunition. Rambo throws the driver out of the vehicle, and the latter soon reports the incident to the police. The sheriff is infuriated to find out that Rambo is alive. As John is driving the truck, a police car starts tailing it. The cops shoot at the side window, but miss the driver. Rambo knocks them off the road, and the car crashes into a vehicle parked on the side of the road. Afterwards, John breaks through a roadblock and returns to Hope, crashing into a gas station. Gasoline spurts in all directions, and Rambo sets off a huge explosion, blocking the highway to the pursuers. Armed with a heavy machine gun, he goes into town. Teasel declares a state of emergency, ordering locals to hide in their homes. The colonel visits the sheriff at the station.
We found Rambo's body. As a matter of fact, it stole an army truck, blew up a gas station the other side of town.
Teasel loses his temper again, accusing Troutman of knowing that Rambo survived. The sheriff arms himself and tells the colonel to get out, realizing that he has always been on the side of his former soldier, not the police force. The colonel, a man of few words, once again cautions Teasel that he is going to die if he persists. He proposes to act as a mediator since he is the only man Rambo still trusts. However, the confident sheriff would rather die than relinquish his position of authority in the town to someone else. Rambo hides while firefighters and police try to subdue the raging fire. Teasel checks the attic of the police station, suspecting that Rambo wants to take revenge on him personally. He gets to the roof and hears John shooting at electrical transformers, depowering block after block. He shoots at the storefronts to distract the police, and then makes his way to the gun store and sets fire to the gunpowder and ammunition. Numerous explosions and sounds of gunfire distract the sheriff and make him panic. As he peeks from behind cover, Rambo spots him. John unleashes a storm of bullets, spraying the station with gunfire. He then heads inside, fully aware that his enemy awaits on the roof. Teasel is the first to shoot, but Rambo swiftly retaliates by firing a round that pierces the roof just beneath the sheriff's feet. The wounded Teasel tumbles through a skylight, landing at Rambo's feet. Just as he's about to finish him off, John hears Troutman's voice. The colonel pleads with him not to kill Teasel, who continues to provoke Rambo by calling him crazy.
You've done enough damage. This mission is over, Rambo. Do you understand me?
Troutman convinces the soldier that he doesn't stand a chance against the entire U.S. Army, which is sure to get here if Rambo shoots young police officers who are just doing their job. John listens to his commander and finally breaks his silence. He yells at the colonel, exclaiming that he didn't ask him to get involved, and this is now his private war. Rambo served his country, and now people are pointing fingers at him, calling him a drifter and thinking he's worthless. He was trusted with planes and tanks worth millions of dollars, and now they won't even give him the most mundane job. What was the point of enduring all the horrors of the Vietnam War and taking lives? Since returning to civilian life, Rambo finds himself rejected by society, and every single one of his comrades is dead. The haunting memories of witnessing an explosion that killed a close friend right before his eyes refuses to fade away. John weeps inconsolably, consumed by a deep sense of hopelessness, anguish, and isolation.
7 years. Every day hurts. Sometimes I wake up and I don't know where I am.
He can't talk to anyone about these horrible memories, so he imagines his dead comrades and talks to them. But it only makes it hurt more as the years go by. Troutman embraces John, allowing him to feel safe, at least for a little while. Accompanied by the colonel, Rambo surrenders to the police after all, putting an end to the endless war outside and inside himself. This classic action movie was actually based on a highly acclaimed novel of the same name by David Morrell. Interestingly, Sylvester Stallone, who portrayed the main character, was so unhappy with the first rendition of the film that he contemplated buying the rights and destroying every single copy of it.
Can't you see this guy's crazy?
Can't you see I don't give a shit?
Eventually, he reached an agreement with the producers to minimize the number of times his face appeared in the movie, resulting in a significantly shorter 90-minute runtime, which has become the golden standard for action films. The movie achieved tremendous success, and Morrell himself believes it improved on the novel. Riding the wave of the movie's popularity, he went on to write several sequels, effectively changing the original book's ending. The book version of Rambo is different from the movie protagonist in several ways. He is more talkative and not as lost. Instead of merely wounding his opponents, he deliberately takes the lives of over 20 policemen in cold blood, and his final confrontation with the sheriff results in the demise of both men. The characters in the novel, on the other hand, are more nuanced, with none of them fitting squarely into the categories of heroes or villains. In the book, Teasel is a Korean War veteran, and his dislike for Rambo stems from the fact that the Vietnam War overshadowed the previous conflict in the public eye, which made its veterans feel overlooked and forgotten. As always, check out the name of the movie in the video description. In the meantime, tell us in the comments, what do you think can help traumatized war veterans readjust to civilian life? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button to see even more cool recaps.